first rate, second rate, and third rate. I'd like some clarification on the use of these three words. First rate has positive connotations and its meaning is manifest, but the meanings of second rate and third rate are relatively muddy in comparison. I know that both of them have negative connotations, and that third rate is even more forceful in the claim it's making than is second rate, but when would it be appropriate to use either? Is second rate a better choice of words when doing an explicit comparison like Prof is better than Prof B? When I say Prof B is second rate, I'm in fact implying that Professor B is less than stellar, but not necessarily bottom of the barrel. And conversely, is third rate a better choice when making some sort of global claim, like for example, when I say Professor C is third rate, I'm implying that he's the worst professor I've ever encountered, and that when Professor C is juxtaposed with any other professor, he will almost assuredly be found lacking in comparison. If anybody has insight or clarification on all this, that would be great. And also, if anybody wants to try at the etymology of these three words, then by all means please do so, as I'd be really interested to find out more about their history.
If you told Prof B that he was second rate, I don't think he'd take any comfort at all from the fact that at least you didn't label him third rate. For most purposes, first rate means excellent, and both second and third rate mean not good. We actually use second rate maybe 3 to 4 times more often than third rate, but they don't normally both occur in the same utterance unless someone is, somewhat facetiously, saying that something else is even worse than something that was already labeled second rate. Historically speaking, third rate has never origins, within which context, third rate ships often actually had the best compromise between sailing ability, speed, handling, firepower, and cost. But in common parlance no one thinks like that today. Second and third rate aren't normally used to indicate different points on the scale of less than first rate.
From the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Third rate, adjective, extremely low in quality or value, worse than second rate. First known use was in 1814. Second rate, adjective, of second or inferior quality or value, mediocre. First known use was in 1669. First rate, adjective, of the first order of size, importance, or quality. First known use was in 1671. Taking into account the above definitions, I would say that it is not optimal to use these words in certain situations when doing an explicit comparison. Instead of third rate you could use a word such as tertiary, which implies the third position in a series of rankings, as opposed to third rate, which has primarily a negative connotation. This won't work for everything, but it's an idea. Number, rate, going by dictionary definitions, does not seem to imply ranking outside of a general measurement of good, mediocre, poor quality. In your second example, regarding Professor C, I believe calling him third rate wouldn't necessarily claim that he is the worst professor, but rather a terrible one in general.
I would suggest that you avoid using second rate and third rate. Depending who you're talking to, you could refer to Prof A as first rate Prof B perhaps, as average Prof C in the terms you give, as the worst professor you've ever encountered.
I may not be a first-rate composer, but I am a first-class second-rate composer, Richard Strauss. I like this example because it gives a bit of specificity to the difference between class and rating.
While I bow to the dictionary definitions in the other answers, I have certainly heard finer gradations than they imply. I have heard third-rate university used in favorable comparison to eighth-rate. The latter is, I believe, beyond the ordinals of British naval practice. Google shows a similar example of eighth-rate in a sports magazine.
If you want to watch channel, click us and subscribe.